Hi, my name is Erin, and this is my personal narrative essay called Don't Blink. The air around me suddenly feels too thick to breathe as my heart becomes paralyzed with fear. My sister did it without any harm done, so why is this happening to me? Mom! I hear my sister shout in a terror-stricken voice. I don't know what happened. She was fine just a second ago. I try to focus on my sister's cries as my eyelids become too heavy to keep open. However, just as my mother is a few steps away, the weight becomes too much and everything fades to black. If only we had played a different game instead of followed the leader. If only I had thought about the consequences of my actions before I jumped onto that dolly without a thought. If only. Life can change at a moment's notice, more swift than a blink of an eye, and no one is ever really prepared when these changes are brought about. Throughout most of my childhood, I found comfort in the consistency of my life. Every day during the week, I would awake from a long night of sleep at exactly 8 o'clock, eat a bowl of cereal, and ride in the car with my mother as she dropped my sister Erica off at my soon-to-be school, Woodford Elementary. I would then wait for my sister to come home at 3:15, where I would then stay out all night playing with her and our friends. Was a routine I had begun doing when I was 4 years old, and one I wasn't planning on giving up anytime soon. Although, apart from my weekday rituals, I also had very specific routines for both Saturday and Sunday. However, Saturdays were very different than the other days of the week, and probably the most looked forward to day of all. Every Saturday, I go to the Akron Beacon Journal warehouse located in Barberton, Ohio, with my mother, sister, and myself. There, my mother gets a head start on stuffing her Sunday papers to allow a much smoother delivery on Sunday morning. Stuffing papers merely means putting the ads and or comics into the community section, which is then placed in the main part. And although my mother normally stuffs her papers the morning before delivering them, Sunday is the most busy of days for paper carriers due to the Sunday comics. And because of the increase of customers she receives on Sundays, she needs extra time in order to have the papers ready the next morning. Therefore, with my father at work, the three girls of the family make our way down to the same place we go to every Saturday. During these Saturday afternoons, my sister and I, typically, can be found playing within the average-sized facility as my mother works efficiently at her table in order to have us home for lunch. And today, June 3rd, 2003, is no different. My mother, sister, and I arrive at the warehouse just a second past noon, the same as every Saturday before. And I can feel the excitement swirling through both my stomach and chest at the thought of being set free from our confining family vehicle as it is driven into the warehouse parking lot. Immediately after my mom parks the car, I hurriedly fling open the car door and hurl myself outside into the fresh air, where I am greeted with familiarity. I am instantly able to recognize the gravel lot a mere 20 feet away, where Erica's friend Sarah had thrown a rock at my head a few months prior, as well as the metal poles lining the path where the delivery truck drops off the parts of the newspaper, the same place Erica and I have spent many hours simply talking. I felt comfortable, as if nothing bad can ever happen to me, apart from the rock, so long as I am surrounded by good memories. I am then brought out of my thoughts as I hear my mother call for me. Erin! Her pleasant voice fills my ears, causing me to turn around and find both her and my sister almost inside the building. Coming! I yell in response, before quickly making my way towards the building. As usual, both large garage doors on the side of the building are open wide, the workers trying to produce a summer breeze inside, and I quickly make my way through the closest one. As I enter, I am welcomed by the smell of ink and sweat that swiftly encompasses me into a state of peace. Once again, I feel comfortable. I look around and see many empty tables with bundles of papers stacked under them, and an equal amount of occupied tables with many of my parents' co-workers sweating profusely as they stuff their Sunday comics into the community section. I smile softly at the familiar sight and walk over to my mother's assigned table, where both my mother and sister are waiting for me. Okay, girls, my mother begins as she takes a bundle from under her table and places it on the top. Remember to stay where I can see you and to be careful. I should be done in a few hours, and then we can go get some lunch, okay? My sister and I nod our heads at our mother's words, and, not allowing a second to go to waste, Erica and I hurriedly begin plotting out game ideas for the hours ahead of us. Normally, our games consist of playing Spy Kids, one of my personal favorites, Follow the leader, rubber band collecting. Rubber bands can be found all over the floors due to the carriers using them to wrap their papers. And sometimes we even bring our scooters to ride around on in the parking lot. Like always, I begin the decision-making process by pleadingly asking, "Can we please play Spy Kids?" And like always, Erica ends my pleas by saying no, but maybe next week. Thus, we both begin supplying other ideas until, after several minutes of discussing what to do, we decide on follow the leader. As usual, Erica is the leader due to her persistent cries of, "I'm the oldest, so I make the rules." Although I don't mind all that much, because I look up to my sister. So I simply nod along, and we soon begin playing. The game first starts with me following her around the unoccupied tables, picking up a few rubber bands along the way. Then outside, where I have to copy her movements, and climbing under the poles lining the delivery truck's driveway. The task is simple, and I quickly complete it with a simple "good job" coming from Erica before she leads me back inside. Everything is normal. My mother is standing just a mere 15 feet away, talking to a coworker a few tables over, while occasionally glancing in our direction to make sure we are okay. Unfortunately, she blinks. One moment, I am standing behind my sister, smiling widely as she offers my next challenge, to walk across the dollies when the most unimaginable event takes place. The task seems easy enough, and my excitement grows as I watch Erica effortlessly jump up onto the first dolly before smoothly walking across the others. Thus, without a thought in my mind, I eagerly follow the leader and jump onto the first dolly as well. However, unlike my sister, it moves from under me, causing me to fall and for my head in the corner of the second dolly to collide. In result, the corner of that second dolly scrapes the flesh on my forehead, leaving a gaping cut in its place. The air around me suddenly feels too thick to breathe, as my heart becomes paralyzed with fear. My sister did it without any harm done, so why is this happening to me? "Mom!" I hear Erica shout in a terror-stricken voice. "I don't know what happened. She was fine just a second ago." I try to focus on my sister's cries as my eyelids become too heavy to keep open. However, just as my mother is a few steps away, the weight becomes too much and everything fades to black. "Erin!" I hear my mother yell as my whole body begins to shake. "Don't close your eyes, honey. Just stay awake until I get to the hospital." Until we get to the hospital. I then feel my body being lifted from the ground and look up to see a blur of my mother's curly brown hair and her hazel eyes, and suddenly I don't feel tired anymore. My mother carries me to the car, placing me into the back seat with my sister, before hurriedly getting into the driver's seat. "Hold those paper towels on your sister's head until we get to the hospital." My mother instructs Erica as she pulls the car out of the warehouse parking lot, and Erica quickly does as told. "I'm so sorry, Mom," Erica cries as she tries to slow down my profuse bleeding. "I didn't mean to." She begins crying hysterically, while still providing pressure to my open wound. "It's not your fault, sweetheart. Just keep the paper towels on her head until we get to the hospital, okay?" My sister simply nods her head through her tears. Soon enough, we are pulling into the emergency parking lot, where my mother and sister rush me inside. Once inside, I am able to see my father worriedly waiting in the emergency room, dressed in his navy blue work uniform. My mom probably called him during the car ride, but I can't remember. "What happened?" he immediately asked my mother, as we are only a few steps away from him. "I'll tell you later," she dismisses quickly, as she is finally standing right in front of him. "First, we need someone to take her in the back." My father agrees instantly, and finds someone who immediately takes me back into a room where doctors and nurses alike examine my injury. They clean and numb the area as soon as I am in a private room, and I just can't seem to stop crying. Every time one of the medical professionals tries to touch my head, I scream out for my parents. I scream out for someone I know to be by my side and not a stranger. My father has to leave the room due to my cries, not being able to stand hearing me in pain, and instead stays outside comforting my sister, who is blaming herself for the accident. While, contrariwise, my mother immediately steps up to me, whispering, "It's okay, honey, I'm right here." She begins to gently push my hair out of my face, still whispering quietly into my ear as the doctor begins stitching the gap on my forehead closed. After only a few hours, during which my sister has calmed down immensely, understanding that it wasn't her fault, and my parents are finally able to take a breath of relief because they know I'm okay, we make it back home just in time to share a family dinner. Life can change at a moment's notice, more swift than a blink of an eye, and no one is ever really prepared when these changes are brought about. Sometimes these changes happen for the better, and sometimes for the worse. Sometimes these changes are as simple as buying a new pair of shoes, or as complex as the death of a loved one. For me, this moment made me realize the value of life at a young age, and is a moment I shall never forget. Life can change as quickly as it can end, so whatever you do, don't blink.